understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.
Happy Friday. We are back with another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. I'm your host, Nandi Oswagu. Today's topic, campus to career, insider advice for recent college graduates. I'm joined by one of my favorite guests. No, this is biased, obviously, because me and this guest go back since high school. So this is like BFF. I'm just going to say probably my favorite guest because of our history. Renee Small, Cybersecurity Super Recruiter, friend of the show.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be back. I feel like I'm the most recurring guest.
No, you are number one, and number two. I earlier this year we decided that you're going to come on monthly because there's always something to talk about in HR. It's things to talk about recruiting. It's just things to talk about with human capital, and that is your company, Cyber Human Capital.
Exactly.
I am going to, even though you're very familiar with the show and you are a friend of the show, I'm still going to read your bio because one, it's an impressive bio, and two, there might be some people viewing it for the first time who's not familiar with Renee Small. So let's go. Cybersecurity Super Recruiter Renee Small helps people take the mystery out of breaking into cybersecurity. She is passionate about building best-in-class cybersecurity teams. In 2017, Renee received the Stevie Award for Female Entrepreneur of the Year. She is a #1 Amazon best-selling author of Magnetic Hiring, a contributing editor to several cybersecurity magazines, and she co-hosts a podcast called Breaking into Cybersecurity. So that's Renee. So here's what Renee and I do, right? Every year around this time, college students graduate. Some get magnificent jobs, some don't. Some even might get jobs, but they're considered underemployed. So we just like to do this episode and really give them some advice, career advice, getting started, getting a foothold in the industry, and so forth. So this is our quote unquote give back. And it's something that I wish when I was a graduated college student, I would have had someone talking to me about these types of things, and but no regrets. And that's why we do this stuff, so we can circle back. So Renee, where do we start?
I guess we should start with what I've been reading as the current state of the college grad job market overall. And it's so interesting because I was doing research on it. As you all know, or some of you may know, our company is really focused in the experience hire space, not as much as the college hire space, but it is a passion of mine because I love to help young people get their wings and kind of like start their careers. So I always have an eye and ear to the, what's happening in the college space. And there's all of these mixed reviews. Like I'm looking at one article. I have multiple articles that I guess I should have given you before so you can put them up, but we'll talk about them anyway. One article here is saying that college graduates agreed with the best job market since 1953. That was Fox Business, right? So they're saying that, and it's an analysis from the Economic Policy Institute. So you have that. Then I was looking at a CNBC article that said that college hires were down 30% in comparison to last year. Now we know that with the pandemic, there was a big hiring push. So many people got opportunities during the pandemic because of, the need for hires, especially in certain industries. but it seemed to have cooled off. So it's these mixed messages, and I really like talking to the actual folks who are on the ground to see what kind of roles they're getting, if they're getting if the opportunities are robust. I mean, I remember when we were graduating back in, do we really want to drop that? But okay, back in the early 2000s, people were getting 3, 4, 5 job offers. Now, granted, we both had technology backgrounds and technology degrees, and those tend to be um, areas where folks get snapped up the quickest. But I'm getting mixed messages that some folks, are not really getting those opportunities. And even the articles are providing, mixed reviews. So this should be a really good conversation to talk through what's happening.
So I mean, yeah, to your point, I mean, let me post a quote from an article right now on the screen from this a CNBC article. I'm gonna put it in the comments, then I'll post it to the screen and read it out loud. So, a recent study from the Economic Policy Institute shows the class of 2023 is graduating into a stronger labor market for young workers as measured by lower unemployment and underemployment rates than the year prior's graduating class. So that's one. Another another quote that I saw that was interesting was let me put this down here.
And it may be an industry focused thing. I mean, we're the Tech Behind FinTech, so
that is correct. Another one. Let me post another quote and then read it because we have this. Oh, Tech Behind FinTech is also on podcast as well as on the webcast. So I know we talk about the screen things a lot. That's why I read it for the listeners in the podcast. There's a motivating carrot at the end of the labor shortage, and that's increased wages. But the other side of that is inflation, which is keeping the jobs at entry level. So it's one side they're saying that you're getting paid more, but things cost more. So another balancing out. And one of the things I was going to ask you, right? We hear about this recession, non-recession. We hear about, well, not hear about.
I think I coined that term.
I got that from you, right?
I coined that, yes.
Yeah, recession, non-recession. I was like, where did I get that from? I got that from you. So it's constantly talk about that, but we're seeing real people getting laid off. So how does that? So in one side, they're saying this is the strongest labor market in 70 years. On the other side, we're seeing people in various departments from FinTech and STEM getting laid off. We're seeing venture capital money drying up right now.
Yeah.
So it's literally,
and it tends to be like that. So if we look back at the different recessions that we've participated in over the past 20 something years, it tends to be like that. Companies will lay off. What I've seen in tech, because I don't want to have a broad brush stroke. My experience and my company's experiences have very heavily in the technology space, and then also heavily in the financial services, hence being on this show with FinTech, and then a little bit of government contracting type work as well. So what I've seen in these industries is, you see mass layoffs, you see many companies, like if you think about the beginning of the year, there were all of these like mass layoffs happening, or the end of last year you saw big companies doing big swaths of layoffs, and then that kind of cools off, and then you see smaller groups, smaller layoffs, and some. I've been getting more and more pings behind the scenes of folks who are being laid off, and mostly again because we work with senior level folks, not necessarily executives all the time, but senior technologists. It's interesting because you're seeing leaders getting laid off in the technology space, in the security space, and hiring also happening in parallel at the more junior level. So and it tends to be like, we've seen this a number of times where you have a combination of, you'll see a company doing all these layoffs and then they have all these jobs posted. That's not unusual, because they'll be hiring in one department and then laying off in another. We in the recruiting space, we're always like, when it gets super slow for a company, and HR knows first, and HR tends to get laid off first, especially in recruiting. If a company is not going to recruit, then what are recruiters doing, right? So you start to see the layoffs first up. If it's the big companies, which are the ones that I've worked in the most, a lot of times your full-time employee recruitment team is supplemented with contractors, and you see them, contractors get let go, and then some recruitment people get laid off. And so as I've been talking to some of my recruitment peers, they're saying, yes, that there's been a heavier slowdown. It's been really slow for months, and so we start to see it before it kind of hits the market. You see, or the folks that are impacted, HR obviously gets impacted first when it comes to hiring. So that's been happening, to answer your question. It always happens where hires are happening on one side or being laid off on the other side. And another thing that we tend to see is that you may not have full-time opportunities, but then it ramps up on the contractor side. So companies have to will get rid of full-time employees, but then turn around and sometimes hire back the same exact people in contract roles. So
I've actually seen that happen. I've seen someone
that happens so often.
Get laid off and then come back as a contractor to the same company. We have a comment from our guest viewers or viewer, LinkedIn user, show your name, but thanks for watching and commenting on the show. Not to mention the Federal Reserve chair asking companies to cool the job market.
Yeah.
I didn't hear about that. You have insight on that?
I didn't have any insight on that, but I could see that. It's an interesting time. Like I said, recession, non-recession.
Recession, non-recession. Talking by Renee Small. All right, so where do we go from here? Look, I look at it like this, right? We, right? I don't know, it was a year ago. You guys can look it up too. Go to the Tech Behind FinTech on YouTube or LinkedIn, Google it, research it. We did a show called Recession Proof Your Career. I remember doing that. It was an episode that we did on the Tech Behind FinTech called Recession Proof Your Career. We're just talking in general, but let's get into it, right? I graduated in 2023. Also, I want to post something else before I get into that. Let's post something from an article. It's a quote from an article. This is very interesting. I'm going to put this on the screen, and I'm going to read it for our future podcast listeners. Okay, let's talk about this. According to Monster's 2023 State of the Graduate Report, the 2023 college grads are more confident than last year's graduates were about job prospects. And this is a notable class, the first to have every year of their college experience affected by the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
I found that very interesting. And then, and when we were not even like, I'm not gonna even say it like we're ancient dinosaurs, right? Because this COVID just happened 3 years ago. But in times of past, right? You go away for college, you're on your college campus, you're doing internships, you're working, you're networking. Right. These guys in this 2023 class, they've literally been home.
Yeah.
Going to school remote for years now. Right. It's almost like a child being born in 2020, right? So that whole COVID experience, or a kindergarten about to start school, COVID hits, you're at home. That impact, I don't know. We're going to see ripple effects of that from years to come. Not sure, right? I don't want to speculate. I'm not a psychologist, but it's something there. What do
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, for sure. And that's something I read in a different article too. Like some of the information being presented is that this is such a unique group. Like their whole entire college, most of, if not the whole thing, has been remote. So they typically, whereas you would be getting an in-person internship, in-person, networking opportunities, part-time jobs, things like that, which a lot of them did. You still did remote internships, and some part-time work, but it wasn't like it was, in years past, like 2018 and prior. So what I was reading is that, companies tend to look for folks that have internship experience when they're hiring for that first year of college, that first college grad, because they want people with a little bit of experience and just knowledge about how to operate in a corporate environment. So, having that, sometimes they know that you're green, you're just coming out of school. So you'll have to learn everything, more or less from scratch in regards to the corporate world. But the internship kind of gives you that little bit of taste of, okay, this is what corporations are like, this is the culture, this is how it is, being in an organization, showing up somewhere at 8 o'clock in the morning, staying until 4 or 5 o'clock, whatever, sending company emails, just being a part of learning how to operate in an organization. And that typically comes from the internships that most or a lot of students get, especially in their junior year. So sophomore year, some, the aggressive ones, but mostly in their junior years, they're getting these internships and these opportunities, and companies tend to look for that. So it's like the norm for, large Fortune 500 company to be looking for folks that have that level of experience when they're bringing in this new class, or they're looking to do interviews. They're looking for people who have a little bit of experience. So it's a challenge, when companies are looking, and these young people have been mostly remote. Now, like I said, some of them have had some internship opportunities, but it was remote internship opportunities. I mean, it is what it is, but that's better than having nothing at all. But I think those are fewer than they were initially, because many companies just, they shut that down. There were definitely some companies that did have the remote internships, but a lot shut it down during COVID.
Yeah, I remember the times when these companies would come on college campuses. They have booths. If they're recruiting for internships, knowing that that person after they graduate can potentially be a lifer there.
It's your pipeline. I mean, the reason why companies do internships, and I talk to parents and students about this all the time, especially folks that are not unaware, is that internship is the pipeline. So companies want to come in, bring in junior talent, grow their pipeline, and they go out looking for interns because, and I used to be a part of a college hire team doing this, we want to hire 60% of the interns that we bring, or 70%, whatever it is. Like we pipeline with the internship so that we don't have to go back out for senior year to hire. That's the whole goal of the internship. So I was like, okay, you give them a taste, we test. It's almost like a little try before you buy, right? So we got a little taste of the intern got a little taste of the company. They're excited, we're excited, or not, like, okay, this person isn't the right fit, or that person decides they don't want to work there, whatever. And then the company will say, well, we had 100 interns, we want to give offers to 80. And we anticipate that we're going to get 60, something like that. So if you have your pipeline that you want to fill with, new college grads, the internship is it. So that's why I stress internships so much, even more so than your first actual job. The internship is kind of like it's the pipeline. So go ahead.
I want to, if I was typing out your words, I would highlight and bold that part, right? And this is now, we're talking for the even though this show is more geared towards the 2023 recent graduates, but now the 2024 guys, the 2025 guys,
25.
the 2026 guys, the 2027, right?
It's 25, 26, 27. 24 is over. The summer's done.
Yeah, yes,
So,
exactly. So there we go, right?
So you're
Internships begin.
2025. Yep, you're 2025 folks. You want to be all over internship opportunities at large companies. Usually used to. I don't know if this is still the same, but they used to come out during the spring. So the spring, as you know, from a college perspective, is like January, February, and those opportunities would come out then, and then companies do the big push to hire, go to target schools. A lot of companies have target schools that they either have supported from a financial standpoint, from an educational standpoint. It's like they're training these folks to hopefully come and work for them or in the industry. And then they'll do their hiring. So, you know, you want to be 6 months ahead. You may think one who doesn't understand the cycle may think like, oh, next May I'll look for an internship. No, you want to look for internships in January, because the internship offers are coming out in like March, I believe, February, March, that kind of time frame, maybe April. And then those folks already know where their internships are going to be, because if you, for example, are on a campus in Florida, and you're looking for the company that you want to work for is in New York, for example, you know, you need time to be able to, in person, find a place, you know, get set up, all of that. So typically, the traditional cycle used to be when school starts back, so February-ish, and then getting offers out for internships like in March or April.
So you know what? Let's get into the advice segment now, right?
Yep.
I have a question for you, and like for the future grads, and then I'm going to jump right into the recent grads. If you do not see the company, right, come to your campus, and it's maybe the winter time, who is the best person to reach out? Do you research? Okay, this is the HR department. I'm going to shoot my shot on LinkedIn. How do I get that opportunity? Like, how should I approach that situation?
So step one is I'm a huge fan of using LinkedIn, for example, or I would say LinkedIn. The reason why I say LinkedIn is because all the executives are on LinkedIn. Not all, most executives, most leaders, people who can make hiring decisions are on LinkedIn. So having a LinkedIn presence, which many young people do not. So starting there, having a LinkedIn presence, having your resume, having a built out profile is important. Having a picture that doesn't look like, you know, you were partying when you took it. Having a professional picture, which your friend can take. It doesn't need to, but, you know, preferably not a selfie, but something that your friend can take of you, you know, somewhere looking professional, and having a presence and kind of sharing either your opinion, making comments on your opinion, following the companies and the people that you want to work for. So if you know that you want to if you have a computer science degree and you want to be focused on, you want to do stuff in AI or whatever, following those folks, doing some research on, okay, which companies am I interested in, start to follow the leaders. The leaders are going to get you further than HR. HR is nice to connect with as well, but a leader will look and see, oh, wow, this person's really interested. They're following along. They're paying attention to what's happening in the marketplace. I always say to young people too, you come with a different experience than somebody like me. So, you know, the leader, sometimes people think like, I don't have the experience. What you have is your experience, like you're 22, 21, 19, whereas these folks are 40 or 35 or whatever. It's just going to be completely different. So you're bringing your exposure, you're bringing your different take on the market per se. So, you know, you can jump into have thoughtful comments, and people, you know, as an executive post, or somebody makes if you're in a thread and you make a comment, a thoughtful comment about the industry, about whatever's going on, that is going to be noticed. So putting out your own content, especially, and your own content could be, these are the things that I was working on in school. This is what my, my final from last year, this was my final project. This is why it was interesting. This is what I learned. It doesn't even have to be things that you're making. You don't have to go and create something. Take what you have, what you're learning right now, and put that information out there. Oh, when I was in, whatever class you're taking, this is what I learned. This is what's interesting. These were the papers, the research I do. You don't have to put, obviously, you're not going to post a whole paper if you wrote a paper on, something related to AI and recruiting, for example. But some of the takeaways, the key takeaways from this was this, I learned this information. So you're kind of giving a summary. You're showing what you're doing by doing this is, if you are a great speaker, you're showing your communication skills, your oral communication skills. If you are a good writer, you're showing your written communication skills. You're showing that, even if I don't have an internship, I know how to act when I get in an office setting, because I'm showing it on LinkedIn. And people take notice of that. I've heard many, many, many folks that we've worked with over the years that we've not when I say work with, we've given advice, and they said, oh, this advice you gave me, I went and I, made these posts or whatever, and somebody had my name on a list and reached out to me and said, oh, I saw your post from 3 months ago or whatever, and I now have an open opportunity and want you to interview. And it was purely based on the presentation that they put on LinkedIn. So definitely want to go down that route. You can definitely follow up with HR. HR people tend to, if a hiring manager says, or if a manager says, hey, put this person in the mix, HR is going to put that person in the mix versus HR going to the hiring manager. So that's why I say follow the folks that are actually making the decisions. They also will know more about what you're doing. Like, they're the ones that are invested. As a recruiter, I don't know the intricacies of, some of the technologies, but Namdi, you would know. So if a young person said this, it's like, wow, this person is impressive. It may or may not, I guess, show up as impressive to me. You might say, oh, this person's super impressive. I want them in the mix. I want them to be interviewed, or I'm looking for this, this type of talent for one of my future roles.
Two questions. So I want to make it as clear as possible for the people listening that might need this advice. The first question I have: how do you know who the hiring manager is? Like, how does that, like, for people who don't understand that hierarchy of the
Right.
recruiter that you're interacting with, they may think, oh, the recruiter's the person who's been talking to me, right? They don't know the power dynamics or the hiring manager. How would a person know that?
So the easiest thing, and when it's college, from big companies, and I want to be very specific about the experience that I know from my own personal experience. With the big companies, you usually have executive sponsors. So like your CIO, your CTO, like all those executives saying, yes, we have budget. We want to bring in 100 interns or 50 interns or whatever. You can follow those CIOs, CTOs if you're in that space. Also, you can look up titles of, if you think, for example, you want to be in the development space, or you want to be in AI, Google or do a search on LinkedIn, like, Morgan Stanley AI director, AI manager, something like that, so that you start to see on LinkedIn those searches who is the person that's most likely leading that team. So the person that's most likely leading the team is more or less a hiring manager. Now, that person, depending on the size of the company, they could be 10 AI directors, like it could be a lot, because if the company is a huge company and they have all these different departments, but as long as you're reaching out to one or two, or you start to follow them, and you see the patterns, they will pick up. Like, sometimes there will be times where, if I'm hiring, hiring like an HR person, and somebody else sees, one of my peers sees this person, they're like, oh, I don't have a position, but this could be a good person for you. So they'll share behind the scenes. So don't feel like you have to bombard everybody, but I would say follow the lead, like your CIO, CTO, that person, and then whatever division that you want to be a part of. And obviously I'm speaking specifically for technology, but in any industry, it's the same thing. If you want to be in HR, you follow the head of HR. And then if say you want to be in training and development, and you look up Google, or I keep saying Google, do a search of training development manager, training manager, all those different ways that companies may say training, and then follow those people. So it's the same process. If it's accounting and finance, it's the same thing. You want to follow the CFO, and then underneath that, let's say, and you may not know as a college grad, you might not know where you want to fall, but follow a couple of those people, like, oh, these 2 classes were interesting to me. And I always say, go back to the classes that interested you the most. So when you go back, when you think about in college or in your coursework, oh, this one was really, really interesting. I think I want to dig in more here. It was my course on whatever that course is. Go Google or do a search of that person. If it's AI, I keep saying AI, whatever it is, do a search in that space for the director of the company that you want to potentially work at, if that makes sense.
I'll give my advice at the end. I have one more question for you. We're going to take a small break for our sponsor. And then after that, we're going to bring on a recent college grad. So he said Bobby have some questions and talk about his situation, and then we're going to go from there. So the question I have for you next is, you talk about a resume, right? I haven't worked. I mean, my last job was in the mall, right? It had nothing to do with what I would have done in a professional setting. Right. How do I put together a resume to send these people?
So resumes are, first and foremost, it's your LinkedIn profile is going to get searched first. So you want to have a LinkedIn profile. That's just priority 1. Your coursework is what they're concerned about. They're not concerned or as concerned that you worked at the local supermarket, as a cashier. That's nice. It shows that you know how to get up and go somewhere and you're self-sufficient and you take initiative. However, that's not what's going to get you your job. Your job, your company is going to look at the coursework that you took. A lot of times it's the university that you went to. Many of the folks that have gone to these prior universities hire people from these universities because they know this place, they crank out great X talent. So we had at one organization that I worked in, Penn State had this awesome cybersecurity program, and some leaders said all the people that came, they were a perfect fit for this organization. They kept going back to Penn State. If you came from Penn State and you were getting a cybersecurity degree, your resume got, put all the way to the top of the list. So in each company has something different. So this, in regards to who's looking for what, you'll never know. Or sometimes you do, because the companies come and they actively recruit. They want a particular, they come to your school because they want your talent. But creating that resume, you want to have your coursework. That's priority. You want to have, if your GPA is great, you put that up there, your degree, or your, when you anticipate your degree, if it's 2024 or 2023, whatever, all of that, that's really the meat and potatoes of your resume. So we're talking about coursework, the courses that you took, especially the relevant ones, and then those projects that were really exciting. So any of the projects, you're almost turning that project into an internship, into a little project, so to speak. So your coursework, if you took whatever class you took, it was something really interesting in there. Pick 2 or 3 of those classes that are relevant to what you want to do in your career. And then you write bullet points on them, almost like you were writing bullets, like I was a cashier doing X, Y, and Z. You want to say the same exact thing You want to talk about your coursework and the projects that you worked on. And a lot of it, I tell students all the time, is pull it from the actual course curriculum. So if you don't know how to get started, you go back to your course curriculum. The course curriculum tells you what you will learn. You will learn how to do X, Y, and Z. You lift that verbiage, make it relatable to you. So what did you learn? What did you take away? And then that's the beginning of your resume. And at this point, ChatGPT probably can create a good one for you with that information. So
I want to just add to what Renee's saying, a few things from a technical perspective. Your GitHub account, if that's public, they can actually see code. I know a lot of more the technical people, they want to see that. Like, what are you doing in GitHub? Open source projects. You should be doing that in college. Jump on open source projects, contribute, and you can list that as like a real tangible project that you worked on that's impacting corporate organizations and projects. Also, professional organizations. I personally like the Cloud Security Alliance. They have projects within it, and then you also can network with professionals while you're there, and they can see your work ethic if you contribute to their project to take on certain roles. So there are things that you can do. It's not paid, right? But the experience and the fact that you can have bullet points in your resume with those things win big. I know from a techie side, yes. We see that. I know people see that like, oh, wow, this guy's doing it, because a lot of them who's working, they don't have as much time to contribute to these things. So they're just like, they're actually admiring you. Like, wow, you contributed to this project and that project. What did you learn from there? And now you're having a discussion as peers. That's my insight. I'm going to talk some more. We're going to go to a short break for our sponsors. Then we're going to bring on a recent college grad.
Are you an emerging fintech with a limited budget seeking more sales and partners? Introducing Strategic Generation, your partner in leveraging cybersecurity for sales and partner enablement. Fintechs often lose opportunities due to unsophisticated cybersecurity programs. That's where we come in. Strategic Generation assists with due diligence, security posture visibility, penetration testing, and on-demand virtual CISO services. We connect your systems to our partnered platform, and voila! Instant access to real-time diagnostics and compliance frameworks such as SOC 2 and PCI DSS. Gain the confidence of prospects and partners. Strengthen your cybersecurity program and drive success. Stop losing deals due to cybersecurity. Visit strategicgeneration.com and click on On-Demand CISO to connect with an expert.
We're back. Thanks to our sponsor, Strategic Generation. Now, without further ado, we're going to bring on an actual college grad and have a really cool conversation. I'd like to welcome Chike Butchalam. Welcome, Chike, to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Glad to have you. Thanks for joining. Let me just put back our banner and then we'll get into it. So, this is your opportunity right now. Tell us about yourself.
So, hi everyone. My name is Chike Butchalam. I'm a recent college grad from Cornell University with a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science and a minor in business. So, I've been listening on, and I kind of have to say, like, the biggest thing for me in my career journey as I'm like just getting out of college is like my graduation path is kind of like abnormal in the sense that one I'm sort of in the college grad class of 2023. I'm sort of not since during my sophomore year, maybe spring semester, I did take a gap year. So I've actually going back to that core, I've actually kind of had the experience of I had the experience of having jobs in remote internships of before the pandemic, which and I've also witnessed life during the pandemic as a college grad, and that's why my career journey is kind of like also hectic, because especially in this current landscape right now, the words that are all the words that are always like jumping out to me on pages like, okay, we 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 require we require grads who have experience in major name software companies, and when it comes to my experience, there were one internships that were basically done with the school with their own internal labs or with startups. Without that little corporate traction, it's always hard to like get myself out there with those kind of jobs, and also the unfortunate fact that when postings say entry level, they don't always mean entry level.
Yeah.
So
That's a huge issue.
that's the
Before we start, though, let's acknowledge a few things. Number one, computer science from Cornell University. Can we just get a clap for that? That's major.
Exactly.
Next, now, and understanding the challenges now, Renee can jump in. I mean, I know we hear a lot about that. It says entry level, but then they want people with like experience. And it's kind of like, it doesn't seem to make sense.
So ridiculous. Yeah, that's ridiculous. But before we get to that, Chike, you said, and I don't know if you were repeating what I was saying or if this has been your experience, that large companies were looking for students with large company internships.
Yes.
Was that's your experience?
It's it, it it's not exactly large companies, but even like the smaller companies, not big, expect like not in line with the Googles, the Spotify, the Microsoft, stuff like that. Even those companies, especially some of the cybersecurity fields, someone just like the quality storage SWE field. SWE for the uninitiated just means software engineering. But even with those like smaller companies, they say like, okay, we do want this major industry experience, which for what I can presume is that they want that corporate atmosphere even without the big label.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. That I mean, it is what it is when you get companies that are saying that. But the way to combat, or yes, so a couple different things. It's unfortunate that companies won't give someone with a smaller company a shot, especially if they are A, coming out of Cornell with a computer science degree, and B, you have something. It's not like you have zero. You have some small company experience. During the gap year, what were you doing? Anything related to your major, or was that something completely different?
It was something completely different. However,
Okay.
during that time, I did I did find myself, one, career exploring, and two, also looking into independent certifications,
Okay.
which for me was kind of like my go-to because knowing that didn't have like this major industry experience anymore, I had to do something that can get me an edge, and that's why I started looking for certifications, and now currently holding my current AWS certification as a cloud practitioner. So
And Cornell is the type of school that I would assume that many companies come on campus either virtual. I know there's handshake and all that stuff, virtually, to look for you all for internships and for full time positions. Is that still the case?
that's still the case. But as as always, a lot of students get lucky into like in their first and second years where they're signed on to like to the Microsoft, the Apples, and this and the Citibanks, that these big name companies that kind of like that even if they don't work for them in the after they graduate, it kind of sets them up it sets them up for life just having those names on there. And I was unfortunate enough to not be able to jump on that train, and I kind of had to make up the difference with little side companies here and there. At one point, I was working with a research lab on my school, just helping with their websites, and
Mhm.
I just get a lucky break through a family connection where I started to work for for blockchain and blockchain
Hmm.
up and coming blockchain company. So I got lucky there, and I really enjoyed myself. So It's
Good.
it's bittersweet in the job market world because it doesn't ring along bells to recruiters. However, I still enjoyed myself. I still enjoyed having that that specialized that specialized experience where I got to work on something up and coming instead of just being like a
100%.
cog in the machine. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, if I was a recruiter and saw that, even if it wasn't a big company per se, because everyone's not going to get a big company opportunity, that definitely shows that you were working in an organization, and you were it's a little bit of experience. We're not looking for typically not looking for a whole ton, just a little bit from somewhere. Nandy, you had a question. It looked like you were about to ask something.
No, a few things. So, maybe do you have a GitHub account that people, okay, that's beautiful. The next, I think from obviously keep looking, right? And I want in this episode, there's some tools that we're gonna go over to help people who are looking. But next, open source projects. In that interim time, join. I mean, you have blockchain Web3 experience. There's tons of projects in that world. Also, AI is really hot right now. You know, looking for open source projects revolved around that, and start literally working there. Cloud Security Alliance and similar groups. You join their weekly meetings. You start, because usually those professional organizations are sponsored by a major corporation, and they basically use them for their research end. But you being there, you get to network with people that are already working. And because you have something very valuable right now, which is time, you can contribute a lot more, and then you'll get a lot of recognition in there. So for you and others, I don't want you to feel like, okay, I'm currently in between looking for a job and I'm not working right now. Yes, that is a fact, but there's work that you can do in your field. And guess what? If you start doing that for a few months in between the interviews, and you tell people, oh no, I'm currently looking for a job, but here's what I'm doing. Here's a project. Here's what I'm working on here. Here's what I'm working on there. It looks extremely impressive, especially if you can back it up. The next thing I want to add, content is king. Renee brought it up earlier. I'm going to emphasize it. This show, Tech Behind FinTech, I started it 3 years ago. I work in FinTech. I was able to network with countless CEOs and so forth. If whether it's the blogging aspect that you're writing, Renee brought that up earlier, start producing content around your field and start posting it on LinkedIn, and even have an offline blog in which you post to both. You will get noticed, especially if you can be strategic with it and look at publications that are current, right? Whether it's a recent hack somewhere, whether it's a new development project, and then link your content into what they're talking about. That is the ultimate cheat code. So I wanted to add that.
I would, those are really, really good points. Excellent points. Chike, I also want you not to get discouraged, because I know you said that, the companies that are looking for big companies. And you said something that was so funny. Started them off for life. And many of us know that, those companies, it's every couple years. So it's re-up. So don't feel discouraged, and don't feel like, okay, they're set for life because they got a 3-month internship at Citi or at Google or wherever. It's just one. Go ahead.
Your audio went down a
My
little bit.
audio went down.
It's coming back right now.
How is it now? Is it better?
It's better.
Okay.
Back to normal.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So yes, I just would say don't be discouraged. Any experience is good experience. The wonderful thing about now versus when Namdi and I were coming out of college is that you have all of this access. It's that social media component is fantastic for a young person with no contacts to be able to get in front of people who will pay attention to you. So to double down on what Namdi said in terms of content, it's so, so true. Also, another area that people have been successful with is the organizations that align to your background. So computer science, for example, what would be some organizations, Liam, do you think that he would be some professional organizations that he can join? Or were there any on campus? Usually the campuses have like a college version of these various organizations. Chike, do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, and I was lucky with that. We definitely had some organizations online. One I can quickly shout them out here because they're on LinkedIn. We had the URMC at Cornell, which which was started and founded by a good friend of mine, and kind of like it would be a really inspirational figure, Jerome Petty, who also went up to found his own organization, Color Stack. So you, people in the comments can look that up. Basically, their whole organizational mission is to look out for BIPOC students, get them those opportunities that might not always be accessible to them, and also be a source of networking for those students. So whenever an opportunity comes up, we all hear about it. So I've been pretty blessed with that.
Have there been any other, like I know in the information security, we have like ISACA, or for HR, when I was in college, it was SHRM, Society of Human Resources Management. So other organizations that would align to, other ones that would align to what you're doing, because again, one, it's a networking opportunity. Two, it's a way for you to get into the industry from a volunteer perspective, and learn. Those folks will learn about you and say, "Oh, Chike's a good. If I have an entry level position, this is the type of person that I want on the team." And that's another thing. When from a college grad perspective, I know Chike, we're talking directly with you. You're already graduated. But for those folks who are, graduating next year, 24, 25, companies really look at, when you're building out that resume, your college leadership experience. So if you're the president of the computer science club, or the president of the, whatever club, if you're playing an executive role in these clubs, they take that very seriously. They realize, like, oh, a student is not only has a 4.0, or nowadays 5.0, whatever. Like, a student isn't only about, this isn't a person that's just grades. They can manage multiple things. They can, it just shows, again, more communication skills, more leadership skills, that you stepped up and you probably ran for an office or volunteered for an executive office. It means that you know how to, these college groups have budgets. So you're probably involved with that, so it just shows a bigger, it shows that a person is multifaceted. So that's another area that you do want to showcase on your resume. So Chike, if you did any of that kind of stuff, if you, any kind of volunteer work, any of that, those are extracurricular interests sometimes at the bottom, that folks can put on their resumes. Or if it's a big enough role, if it was like you're the president, you're the vice president of the computer science club, you want to put that in there, and you want to map out what you did for that year or those 2 years. So that's another area that's important from a resume perspective and gets looked at very favorably. Go ahead, Namdi.
Yeah, so as we're going to take another brief break to shout out our featured company of the week. As you guys know, our effort here is to support the FinTech community. So every couple of episodes, we like to shout out those companies. So today's featured company of the week is GrainChain.io. GrainChain facilitates transactions and finances to producers by digitizing the agriculture supply chain. It's more than just an ag tech, fintech, or blockchain technology company. GrainChain is a data company that captures, aggregates, and unlocks the power of data for all participants. Why GrainChain? GrainChain is the first time connecting all participants along the supply chain through a single point of truth, powered by a trusted, transparent data. This data allows us to open up new opportunities for liquidity in the marketplace. You can find them at grainchain.io. So what I want to get into are some tools that can actually help along the effort. Let me get a wide screen going on. And wait, escape that. Let me add this. Couple of AI tools that can help people looking. All right, Interview Buddy. Virtual face-to-face mock interviews with industry experts. Oh, how I wish I had this when I was just starting out and before I knew what questions they'll ask and so forth. I haven't used any of these tools. Got a link. They seem really interesting, so I'm just putting it out there, see if it works for you. Interviewbuddy.in for virtual face-to-face mock interviews so you can get practice. Next one, Interview Bot. How it works. Choose your interview type, pick your avatar, prep time. Wait, go too fast. Go, subscribe, and coaching. So this seems like another one, right? An interview bot, same kind of technology in which is doing some type of mock interviews. Some of these might have price associated with it. You have to research that on your own. Next, CV Scan. CV keyword scanner, how to optimize your CV for applicant tracking systems. I think this one is like gold. Here's why, and Renee could attest to it. You're going to get your resume sent to these companies. They have a tool that scans it. And then some get to the bottom of the list, some get to the top. If this technology works the way that it's saying it's going to work, it basically allows you to get to the top of the list by using keywords. Next technology, Lazy Apply. This is so cool. Automate your job application process. They automatically apply to all the jobs on platforms like LinkedIn, Indeed, and ZipRecruiter using a job GPT. So basically, it's like automating your application process on steroids. LazyApply.com. What's the next tool people can use? Okay, I think those were the tools. Let me put this back. All right, listen, Chike, I'm gonna put you in the center. Let's see if I can do that. How does that work? Bingo. All right, listen, this is your shot. Tell people what you're looking for, how they can find you, and what you're interested in, the direction you're interested in going in terms of some technologies that you use.
Okay, so once again, my name is Chike Buchla. I'm recent college grad from Cornell University with a major in computer science and a minor in business. I'm currently on the lookout for entry level cybersecurity jobs. Entry level being hopefully real entry level. Sorry, but yeah, but and us and with the long term goal and eventually ending up in a career in blockchain and Web3 development. I'm really interested in where that technology is going and excited for the possibilities. And personally, I would love to be a part of that. But as I'm going through my career search, my key goals are to get that experience, build my skill set, and in turn be in a position where I can actually make those changes I want to make in the future.
Sounds great. Let me put us all back on the screen. Well, didn't want to do that one. That one. Not that one. Well, let's hope. Trying to get it. Okay, now we're all back. Listen, Renee, I want to thank you so much for joining the episode as usual, dropping all of your jewels. Very helpful. And I think we have a chat going on. Yeah, very helpful. How can people find you, Renee?
LinkedIn, Renee Brown Small. That's the best place. That's the best place to find me. We haven't done it in a long time, but we're about to do it now. Breaking into Cybersecurity is the podcast and live stream that we did a ton during COVID. And Chris Folon, who I'm going to jump off this live and go join that live. He and I are doing Ask Me Anything shortly, and we have tons and tons of content in regards to career focus, cybersecurity, He has a series specifically talking to leaders in the cybersecurity space. We had a ton of, the reason why we started at Chike in particular is because a lot of people were not having a hard time breaking into cybersecurity. And so some of the things that you talked about, like the job descriptions that are not really entry level, that say they're entry level, but then they're asking for 5 years experience and all these certifications, like that's not what entry level means. So definitely, if folks want to follow me or reach out, I'm on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Renee, for joining, giving me insight. Chike, thank you for joining and sharing what you're looking for in the job roles. Definitely, we'll be in touch. Any insight that you need, we'll definitely shoot you that information behind the scenes. To all, thank you for viewing this episode. We're back next week, Friday, 12 p.m. same time. Topic next week is AI. You're not going to want to miss that. Every Friday, 12 p.m. Tech Behind FinTech, also at techbehindfintech.com. We want to thank our sponsors. Also want to thank those viewing us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and my guys on Instagram. Appreciate you. And with that note, we are out. Cheers.
Take care.
Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.